Welcome to Blondie and the Brit, Writing, Publishing, and Beyond. You can find our show notes and more information about our podcast at blondieandbrit.com. That's BLONDIEANDBRIT.com. Welcome to Blondie and the Brit podcast. I am Blondie, KJ Waters.
And I'm Suzanne Kelman, I'm the Brit.
And together we're Blondie and the Brit.
Yay!
Woohoo! I am the author of Stealing Time.
And I'm the author of the Rejected Writers Book Club.
Welcome to the best of Blondie and the Brit. This episode, we interview our very own Suzanne Kelman about her journey from indie author to being picked up by Amazon. And if you happen to be an Amazon Prime member, her book is free right now. So go check it out, the Rejected Writers Book Club on Amazon Prime. Welcome to Blondie and the Brit. Today, we have our very own Suzanne Kelman that I'm going to interview about her Amazon Lake Union press picking her up and all the exciting things that she's been doing and readying herself for her book launch on March 29th. Welcome, Suzanne.
How's it going?
Okay, so I am so excited to have been on this journey with you. I feel like I've been an integral part and only in my mind, but because you and I started a while ago with the book cover for the Rejected Writers Book Club with my company, and then that was part of kind of how this whole thing started, where you and I really connected well with that. So let's start from there and kind of some of the things that you have done that got you noticed by Amazon's publishing arm, Lake Union.
Yeah, I think it's really important, I think, to start with social media. Because when we just having this conversation with Rachel, if you need to listen to that podcast too, that there's no point in writing a book if you expect it just to kind of sell itself. And so I was very active and still am very active on social media, not really to sell my book. I mean, that was part of what I was out there to do, but really to connect first and foremost. And so when I found about me, which is where Daniel and I connected, and I realized when I was talking to her yesterday, who she was, because I remember we had a conversation over there. And I remember that she was somebody in publishing, and I just thought it was interesting that we were in the same city, and I just wanted to connect with her about that. And so I remembered who she was. So it wasn't as if she just looked at my page and saw something. I actually reached out to her just for a conversation. Right. And we went back and forward a little bit, but then there was nothing. And we didn't, she didn't follow up. And I wasn't surprised because we did connect, but I remember thinking at the time, oh, that was a really great connection. I hope we stay in touch, and we didn't. And that's the other thing. You don't know when you're out on social media who you're talking to or who they know. So make sure that you're nice out there and you really do connect with people, because you never know that next person could be your career, which is kind of what happened to me. I was in the Amazon building yesterday. I was very excited.
I know, we're going to get to that in a minute.
You have to get through security, so, all that kind of thing. It was kind of interesting.
Did they look in your purse?
But I don't know what they do over there, but I know that they don't pick up an author just overnight. They watch their social media, and like every, author should be out there in social media. And you and I were just talking about this, KJ, for agents as well. If you're looking to get an agent, the first thing most agents do is Google you. Right. So you should Google yourself and find out what's out there. If there's crazy pictures of you being drunk somewhere, you need to put a lot of posts up there so that ends up on page 10.
Yes.
Because
actually there's a website that I use, not a website, but an app or something that I use called brandyourself.com. And I use that to go, and it shows you your links, and it tells you how to raise links and hide links and take things off that aren't you. So you look at that, you guys. If you're not doing that, it's a really helpful tool, and it just helps you maximize your Facebook and your, all the different places that you are. Your website gives you tips and tricks to go into here and tells you exactly what to do. So
I think that's really important. It's first and foremost is everything you're doing on social media counts. So you make sure that everything that's out there, you want to be out there. And you and I have had this conversation occasionally. We'll go to do something fun, and then we'll say, you know what, maybe not, because I'm not sure I want that on social media right now. Right. And I'm not sure I want that high up my Google rating and that kind of thing. So you have to be aware. We're all out there, whether we like it or not,
Exactly. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Now, from there, let's skip ahead. You got the email from them, which I think you've told on the podcast before, but you and I were talking at the time, which isn't that surprising because we talk
every day.
Constantly. But you're like, oh, I don't know what this is. I might just chuck it. And so tell them that little bit.
And it was funny. And I actually had a conversation with one of the editors yesterday. She says, people do actually bin it. They actually think it's a scam. And so they actually have to, they have to approach authors again, because often they don't hear from an author that they just put an offer out for, and they don't hear from them. They guess they just think it was, as you would.
Another
I got an email saying that it was a publishing house that wanted to pick my book up. And you're like, okay, yeah, sure, that's just too good to be true. It doesn't happen, right? Or whatever the words are. But so I was pretty sure that it was a scam. Fortunately, I have a really great friend who's an agent, and I looked at it a couple of times. In fact, I read it out to you. Do you remember we read it to you?
You got it when we were talking, and I was like, dude, call them. Find out what's going on.
Call them. Because that's you. And I'm like, I don't know. So anyway, so I sent it to my agent, who is now my agent. She was just a friend who was an agent then. And she basically said, call me right away. And I knew then, because she's a very busy lady, very successful agent, and for her to want me to call her straight away and not in like 3 days' time meant that it was something
worth
so I did.
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, it was Amazon, because since then I have learned that being part of the Amazon team is incredible. And, they're doing amazing things for their authors. And I feel very fortunate to have been picked up by Lake Union Publishing, which is the women's fiction arm of the Amazon, imprint. So I was very fortunate that I kind of landed on my feet there.
Amazing. All right. So now they say, hey, we love your book. And then you send them a copy. Now, what came out of that? Did you have to do edits and that kind of thing?
Yeah, they actually treated me as they would a manuscript. So even though my book was published and it was out, they took the manuscript back as it was. I sent them the clean manuscript, and they basically went in and did what they would do for any other author who had just sent them a manuscript. So that included a development edit. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that basically they look through the whole storyline and they figure out anything that needs to be tightened, any things that aren't making sense. If you put a setup in the big chapter 1 that you don't pay off in another chapter, or names that have changed, anything like that. They're looking for all that kind of thing to develop the story. And so the first thing I went through, I went through was a questionnaire. They sent me this questionnaire, huge questionnaire, and about all the different aspects of my book. And it's been a while since I filled in, so I can't remember a lot of the questions now. But I remember I got this huge questionnaire, and I actually sat down with my agent, because I signed her right away, and we sat down and figured out what some of those were and went through that and sent that in. And then I sent them the manuscript, and then they started work on that. So they actually have it very set out. So, we want this back by this time. And then after that, of course, we had a copy edit, which is, of course, it's just for typos and grammar after you've done the development edit. And then after that, they do what's called a final edit, which is just cleaning up, just catching anything that they've missed.
Now, tell me, I found this really interesting. They ended up asking you to remove a character. Is that true?
Well, they don't ask you to do anything. They suggest. And one of the suggestions that happens in development is they're looking at your characters. Does this person, one of the things we did was a couple of characters, and this is really good for people to know. There was a couple of characters that only appear in one scene. They're kind of, they're in that whole chapter, but then you don't hear from them again. And one of the things she said was, every time you name a character, a reader thinks they've got to follow that person. So only name characters that are going to go all the way through the storyline. And so that was really good information. And so I went in, and instead of it being John and Brenda or whatever it was, it's mom and dad, his mom and dad.
Right.
Because then the reader knows it hasn't got to track those people.
Right.
Which is a really interesting piece of information I didn't know beforehand.
I wouldn't have ever thought of that, but it's true. Like, I do it in the waitress's name, but it's pointless. It's just confusing the reader. It's a whole different.
Well, the reader thinks there's somebody, and
right, the psychology of a reader. So yeah, that's good information.
So the other character was, when we looked, because I have a whole bunch of women, and they're all very individual. But we felt there was one character, and when I put her in the book, I'd only got her in for one reason. And there's another thing not to do, don't put a character in just for one comedic payoff. There was only one comedic payoff for that particular character. And we didn't need her. So what I managed to do was fold one character into another character, So I did get rid of one, but she actually became somebody else.
Oh.
she evolved into another character.
Wow.
So I took some of the comedy that was coming from that character and paid it off in this other character, if that makes any sense.
And then it's less for the reader to keep track.
Yeah.
That's good. So how did that change the story as you were having to go through the whole manuscript with that person? Was she not in enough that it made any difference?
She wasn't in enough, which was fortunate. She was only in about 3 scenes, and she would just had a line here and there, so it wasn't that much. I mean, I just literally went and cut her out. So sorry, Elaine, you have left the building.
Sorry. What other kind of development edits did they make?
It's really interesting. You'd think that any development editor would be okay. Pick a development editor that is either the age of your protagonist or the people that are in the story, or choose a development editor who reads that kind of work. Because to have somebody, let's say for me to go get a thriller, somebody who just develops thriller stories, I don't think they'd be a good fit for me. So it is important when you're looking, look for one that, I mean, a good editor will be able to do anything. I'm not saying that this is so black and white, but I'm just saying if you are choosing an editor, my age group, all my women are older. So there's things that we as 50 plus women know that a 22-year-old just wouldn't know.
Right.
And so it's helpful to have development editors that are closer to your age range, at least for your audience, I think.
Right. Well, that's great advice. And with Amazon, you had a choice then?
I didn't have a choice, but they took some time picking the development editor. So I think it's important that
they made the choice, right? I get that. That's good.
They made the choice. But the thing is, with what I loved about the whole process with this particular company is I never felt forced to do anything. I mean, they always were very respectful of me, even when I was doing the development edit. It wasn't like, you've got to get rid of this. It was, we suggest that maybe you do this, or we suggest that you do that. And so I think that's and there was a couple of things, my voice is comedic and it's quite strong in parts. And there was things that, that they maybe were looking at, what they were trying to do was get the book shorter, make it tighter.
Right. And
so it's easy to get rid of some of those one-liners, comedic one-liners, because that obviously shortens it down. But I also know that my readership really respond to those.
Yeah.
So to me, taking my voice out was never an option.
Right.
Take out some flowery flowers or a few old trees.
Right, exactly.
How the weather is. But, the comedic one-liners, people like those. And so I kept a lot of those in. So
yeah, exactly. That's good. And so for you, even though Amazon is a big publisher, you stood your ground on things that were really important to you to make it, the branded work that you have worked so hard to do. This is I
think every author should do that.
That's what I'm saying.
Every development editor, and that's the thing, is to know your voice. And this isn't about a wrong and a right. This is about knowing what your readership like, knowing who they are, and then making choices based on that, not on ego.
Right.
Not, well, I love this part of the story, or I love this character. And I think this is good. We do this, both you and I, KG. You step out of creating zone into editing, step back, take a look at it for the reader's point of view. And you do end up cutting things sometimes,
Yeah, well, you have to.
Because you have to.
One of the things they said is that everyone has that one thing they've thrown in the book just for themselves. And I'm like, I don't have that. And my stepmother's reading through my script, and I've originally had Steph talking a lot more of an accent. She's Scottish. And she's like, maybe you should pull that out. I was like, oh my God, that is my one thing that I put in there for my own pleasure. It has nothing to do with the reader. So I cut all that out and just had her say a few phrases here and there where you got the flavor of it, but it wasn't so distracting. So.
Isn't that interesting? I've never heard that before.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, and so having somebody development edit, they can find those things too that really don't serve much of a purpose for the story. Your heart is in it because you love, like for me, I love Scotland and I love Scottish people, but it didn't serve the story. So to have development editor.
But I think I agree. But I think every writer should not get a hard skin. I don't want to say that. But I think you have to be flexible in the creative process.
Yeah.
And, if somebody gives you something that makes sense, even though you don't like it, then you do it because it makes sense. You don't want anything to be in that book down the line where people are constantly going to question that one thing. And that was always a concern to me. There'd be one thing which people wouldn't get, and I didn't want that.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll give you an example of that. There's a phrase in England that says she gave herself a stripped-down wash. And that basically was years ago when we didn't have showers. You take your clothes up and wash yourself down with we call it a flannel. What do you call it? Like a washcloth.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a very English saying. She gave herself a stripped down wash. But when I was doing the development edits, I have that phrase in there, like as a joke, like she wants to go give herself a stripped down wash. Well, of course, the editor didn't understand that because she's American. And so that was one of those things. It was funny, but I didn't want the readers to be tripped on that. It was like, It's not a big enough payoff for me comedically.
Well, and she wasn't English.
I'm not going to let the reader go, what the heck's she doing? You know, I didn't need that.
Well, exactly. And then she wasn't English. The character that you had was not English, so it was true to you.
That was just that was what you said. It was a thing I threw for myself.
Yeah,
make myself laugh.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Well, that's fine. Okay, so let's move on to the cover. You had a really kind of a fun process coming up with a new cover. Can you tell us how that went with it?
Yeah, and it was kind of challenging because we were so happy with the cover that we had, that you created for me. But we actually started with the part of that huge sheet that I filled in at the beginning that I was telling you about was about the cover. What are some ideas? What are some of the things that are in the story that we can incorporate? What's the feel that you want for your cover? Which was great because then I could go on. Mine's, a very small town. It's about people gathering around tea and trees and anything northwest. So I was able to give them a lot of ideas. And so what happens is they send you when they go away and they figure out what they're going to do. And then they send me images of the covers. And so what happens is we go from this is there at the beginning stages kind of thing. And we look at them and my agent looked at them and we were just not really looking at colours so much as design. What's the feel we want to pull people in with? And then you go from sort of 6 or 8 designs I think they sent me. We went down to a couple of designs or 2 or 3 different ways we could go. And then they went back to them again and they fiddled around with it, fiddled around, that sounds awful. I'm sure they did professional things to it.
They fiddled.
I'm sure there's somebody with a title that we totally did right now.
Did an amazing job. 20 hours worth of work. I'm sure. Oh,
she says $120,000 fiddling with book titles. So anyway, so they went away and they fiddled with it. And then they sent it back to me and we had another round of covers, designs, and then it went back again. And then we were kind of figuring out the text and all that kind of thing. And then eventually it came back and I know my publisher was really happy with it.
Yeah.
I was really happy with it. My agent was really happy with it. And that was wonderful. But I really felt like at one point they were thinking of going in a different direction. And they really did listen to us when we said, well, when we're looking at branding and these other things that we were considering, we just didn't feel that it was a beautiful cover, but it didn't feel like it really reflected the series because this is a series.
Oh, see.
And so it would be hard to do the second or third. And so we voiced that and they really did listen. That was what I really appreciated. That's great. That they went away, they listened to what we had to say and they came up with an incredible cover and everybody seems to love it.
It's gorgeous.
I was talking to somebody from Amazon yesterday, the author relations lady who's very sweet, and she said, I've got it on my desk. I love it so much. I have it right there on my desk, which I thought was so sweet,
That is. Okay, so you were at Amazon. Let's get into this. I know there's like a little
yesterday.
In between. Suzanne, first of all, lemon cake. Tell them that part, and then
lemon cake. Well, that's the most important part of the interview.
Of course.
Lemon cake.
In fact, we should call it lemon cake.
Lemon cake and loonies. That's exactly what we should call it.
We have to because you've brought it to life. That's her second chapter of the book, and it describes Suzanne perfectly. She's loony.
It's perfect. So the second chapter of the book is called Lemon Cake and Loonies, and it's about the first time that my protagonist meets the rejected writers. She goes to a meeting of the rejected writers, and just for a background, so some of you understand what that means, is this group of women, they're small town, all very eccentric group of women. And they've all been rejected by publishers. They've all had rejection letters. And instead of getting sad about that or being shamed about that, they decided that they're going to celebrate every rejection. So once a month, they all get together and bring their rejection letters together. And they've created this montage of rejection letters in a huge book. And they celebrate. They have a party. They eat cake. They drink tea. They make a whole thing of it, and there are about 475 letters they've got in this book and 25 to go or something like that. It is 25 to go. And then they're going to have this huge celebration when they get to 500 letters. And right as that's happening, one of them gets accepted by publishers with the worst book out there on the planet and nobody can understand why. And so the story is based around how they deal with that within a group because they have rules where if anyone gets published, which is, as she says, we lose them over the years. It's unfortunate. Some of them we can lose them to the publishers. But, so what happens is the rules are once you are published, then you're out of the group. And so that's what the story's about. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of silliness. And there's an interesting B story that goes along with that. So.
It's a great story, everyone. I read it. I was a beta reader. I was very lucky to be in on the very early stuff.
It's so fun.
And
it's fun. It's a light read. If you're looking for real deep and heavy, this is not the book for you. But if you're looking for something fun on holiday or something everybody, the main comment I get back is that they really enjoy the humor in it. They enjoy the small town. They enjoy the relationships between the women. So if that's the sort of book you like to read, then this is the kind of book for you. Yeah. So, and I wrote it for that reason. Yeah. I wrote it to celebrate small town. The whole point is that at the beginning, the protagonist doesn't like anybody, and she gets won over because of who they are. And so it really is about us learning how to fit in, particularly in small communities. We have to learn how to do that. And it's really about friendship. It really is at the heart of it. That's what the story's about.
Yeah, and it conveys very well. It's great. Okay, so we've described the book and the chapter, and everyone's like, well, what's this lemon cake besides the chapter? Tell them what.
Okay, yeah, we got off track there. Yeah, so the whole point was, my agent and I got together, and Amazon had invited us down to do a tour of the offices down there, and as it turned out, we didn't get to do that because they were actually moving offices. Oh. And so we put off the tour of the office for a few months, but we said, hey, they contacted us and said, look, you're already coming down. Why don't you just come we'll take you out for lunch. That's actually what we did yesterday. But my agent and I said, well, let's take it. The second chapter's all about lemon cake. Let's take an incredible lemon cake. And so then there was the hunt for the perfect lemon cake. I couldn't go to the store and just buy one off the shelf in plastic. So, I had to do that. And I actually did find incredible CJ and Yvonne of JW Desserts. They probably aren't listening to us, but they were incredible. They did a beautiful, they're down here on the south end of the island at JW Desserts. And they did such an incredible job. They put lemon buttercream, lemon curd, and lemon mousse into this cake.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It was just incredible. It was beautiful.
And you have pictures. I made you take pictures, so we'll put those up on our show notes.
Pictures. I have pictures. So we took the lemon cake down, which was just really fun, and they all enjoyed it, and it was really fun to hang out with them all and talk. So, yeah, it was good. It was a good experience yesterday.
Cool. Okay, so through all of this, you are now launching your book, and you have all this marketing advice that you've gotten from Amazon. You've also researched a bunch of things on your own. Tell our audience what you've done different recently that has really paid off. Let's give them your insider tips here.
I'd love to do that because, I think that particularly with social media, and I know a lot of people are afraid of Twitter, but the reality is once you've been, if you've got 500 friends on Facebook, once all of them have bought a book or at least know about the book, then you really are, there's not, where do you go from there? I mean, you have to be out on other platforms in order to get your book to different places. So, Twitter is the other one that I love to do that on. I meet lots of people over there. And so I decided to do an experiment, which is I upped the amount of tweets. I used to do about 10 a day, and I use Hootsuite, which, you put them into Hootsuite and then they tweet out. One thing to be aware with anything that's automated like that is I'm always ready to respond. So if Hootsuite goes out and somebody goes, hey, I love this, or thank you, I always thank people for their retweets. I try and get back to them that day, at least within an hour or so, just to thank them and to be interactive. The point for me of Hootsuite is just to save me doing it right at this minute, where I might be doing something else. But it's not just to make my tweets automated, because people will pretty soon will figure that out.
Right.
Once they see the same things coming up, or they see there's no response, there's no interaction. Right. So I use Hootsuite, which I love.
Well, and so, let me just add a little thing in there. You and I both are on the same Hootsuite for the Blondie and the Brit Twitter site. So when we had the author of the day, each of us took a day, and it was a great way for us to coordinate. I could see what you put up the previous day and kind of get ideas of what I should put up for the author. And it was a very useful tool for both of us. So teams can use it as well.
Yeah, we love doing that with Blondie. That's true. And so anyway, so I thought I've been doing about 6 to 10 tweets a day, I think was kind of what I was doing. And I decided to up it to maybe 4 an hour. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do it for a week just to see if I lose followers, and just see where that goes, and tweet through the night, because I don't normally tweet through the night. But of course, Twitter's so big now. I mean, we have people in Europe up during those times, those hours, and so I thought I would try this. And what I did was I added a link to my Twitter account, and I'm giving them a shout out here because it's such an easy link to follow. It's called booklinker.com. And you basically, it literally took me, I think, 2 minutes to set up the link. There was not a lot of complication to setting up the process. And then you take that link and then I'm adding it to all the tweets that are relevant to my book. And that link is going back to my Amazon page. Now, this only works for Amazon, I believe. I'm not sure. But it's like what they do is what's called an international link. So when somebody in Germany hits my link, it doesn't take them to Amazon.com. It takes them to Amazon Germany, DE, you know, so they get to see the book in their own store. And it's just one less step for them to have to try and find it.
Right.
And so, you know, because for us in .com, we don't think about it. But, you know, if you're in the UK or Europe, you have to go from com to whatever way
right.
and then you've got to find it and type it in again. We don't have to do that because Booklinker takes you right to the site. So I wanted to do that. And I also wanted to watch that for the stats, for the, you know, analytics. And I was very surprised. First of all, I'm not tweeting out about my book 4 times an hour. I need to be clear about that.
Yeah.
I tweet out a lot about content, marketing particularly, because it's something that I find really interesting. I also do quotes. I also do pictures. I mean, it's, you know, anything. I tweet out for other people. I retweet things. So it's not just all about my book, but I made sure that, first of all, I made those beautiful pictures, you know,
right.
like little graphics. Right. That's what I was looking for, graphics with some quotes on my book on it and put my book linker. And I'm putting a little, you know, I'm also added some hashtags, which I know do really well. And I'm doing some quotes from my reviews, just so, you know, this right. is a fabulous read or whatever it was. And I was doing that, and I do them out like every, you know, hour and a half or every 2 hours. There's a link going out for my book tour, blog tour, and we'll talk about that I'm sure in a minute. But it was like I got that out there. And I couldn't believe, not only did I think I've gained 600 new followers in the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
But without me doing anything, because I thought I was going to lose them, I actually gained them. And I have about 1,000 people hitting my Amazon site right now. And so that to me was
1,000 people,
huge,
what, a day?
Yeah, a day.
That is crucial because 1,000 people is not the same as 1,000 people a day. That is amazing.
I know, it's 1,000. I think it's about 20,000 right now. I just looked at it today. And now I don't know. There's big hitters out there that's like peanuts, but to me, that was a lot. That was a big jump for me.
Yeah.
To get to 1,000 people going to my. So I do recommend this for people. You know, put together some nice graphics. I'm not going to do this forever. I'm only doing it during the book launch because I'm not sure. One, I could keep doing that. You know, it's a lot of work to be loading those Hootsuite tweets in all the time. But also, I don't want to do it. The whole point of this is just to get the word out for the launch. You know?
Right. And you have your book up on pre-sale. How long ahead of time did you put your book on pre-sale?
Well, they handled all that. And I think it's been on pre-sale for about a month now. They had to wait for the cover to be finalized and things. But it's up now, and it will be up on pre-sale until the launch on the 29th, which will be, in fact, when this airs, it'll already be up as a live book, because I think we're airing this, we're actually going to air this on the 30th of March, and so if you are interested in reading the Rejected Writers Book Club, then there is already a link where you can go buy the book.
Yay! So, we will put it in our show notes.
$3.99, I think it's going to be $3.99, so.
Yes, the other thing that you need to tell people about is your Facebook launch party.
Yay! We're having a Facebook lunch party.
Who's hosting this fabulous party?
This incredible blonde is hosting.
Oh, wow!
My blonde counterpart, God bless her. And I'll do the same for her when her book comes out. Yay. But yes, but KJ Waters is the host. That's worth coming just for that, right?
I'm so honored, though, when she asked me. She did it so timidly, too. Like, would you mind? I don't know what to do. I was like, shut up. Let me just do it for you, all right?
Yeah, it was so fun. But yeah, no, absolutely. So we want you all to come. So it's going to be
April 8th.
April 8th. So
it's a Friday.
Like a week to get your party gear together, go buy a hat, anything you need to buy, you know, shave, whatever you need to do for the party. Jump on in.
Shave your legs, ladies.
Shave your legs for the party. And if you've never done a Facebook party, I don't know what other people's Facebook parties are like, but ours is a hoot.
Yes.
We like to have a lot of fun at our parties. So,
yes.
You know, it's a little different because obviously you're on the format of Facebook. It takes you a little minute to get in there and figure out what's going on. But I always love them. I always really enjoy so much fun on those.
You and I have had the best times at our Facebook parties. Just
to say, we're having that's the virtual launch, but I'm also doing a regular launch. I'm going to have a party here on the island. So that's going to be fun too.
Cool. I need to come, but I don't know if I can get away. I was just there.
Yeah, you would. You were just it. But, but I was going to say, so there are going to be a couple, but that's what I was going to say that, for authors who are launching, I think you need to launch on multiple platforms. You need to have Facebook party or a Twitter party. I mean, there's a way to do that as well. You also need to maybe have something locally that you can invite people to, that you can put in the press. And then also, what I'm doing a blog tour. That's another thing that you can do this virtual,
Lots of good stuff. Yeah, it's going to be lots of fun.
I hope so. I like to make people laugh. That's my career choice in life, is to make people laugh.
Make people laugh. Well, you make good use of that in all kinds of mediums, with screenplays and film.
Yeah, whatever's going on.
Yes. Well, cool. Okay, so, oh my God, we have to do the lightning round for Suzanne.
I don't think I've done this one before.
You have never done this one. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
What is your favorite band or artist?
Nora Jones.
Oh, cool. Oh, I like her.
Well, Nora, actually, my son calls her Snora Jones. Because I play her every day. We have dinner, I play her. He's like, oh, no, Snora Jones.
Snora Jones.
But it's like, I love her. I think she's great.
Oh, yeah, she's really like just mellow jazz, very great voice.
I need mellow jazz. That's what I need in my life after a whole day being Blondie in the Brit.
West Coast or East Coast?
Has to be West. I live right here. I live in the most beautiful place in the world. Why would I want to go anywhere else?
It's gorgeous.
Let's West Coast.
The only thing I would change is I would make the water warmer. Can't do that in Pacific Coast.
We do that? Global warming's doing that for us.
Oh, there you go.
We won't have any polar bears, but maybe I'll be able to go swimming. I know it's ridiculous, isn't it? But yes, so maybe.
What is your favorite writing spot?
You've been to my studio. I have a beautiful studio out in the garden, and I actually have a corner where I write by my little fire, and I have a little armchair, and I have a little cup of tea, and that's my favorite spot to write. And because my body knows that when it sits there, it has to write. So it's my dog. Normally, the most challenge I have, my favorite writing spot, is my dog wants to sit on my lap at the same time. So the challenge is juggling the computer on the dog's head. So
on the dog's head. And your dog is Dixie,
Which she
right?
doesn't like. I don't know what's wrong with her. It's like, what's wrong with you? Keep still.
Are you a pantser or a plotter?
I am a pantser.
Yes, you are.
But I have to then go back and sometimes I have to go back and plot afterwards.
Oh.
And that's, interestingly enough, I am a pantser, but I plot in my brain a lot beforehand. So I don't actually write it down, but I already know where I'm going. So I suppose it's like I'm a planther.
A planther. So am I. We talked about that in Mark Sadler's interview, where I thought the whole reason I decided to be a writer because I read someone that they just sat down and wrote, and I thought, God, I could do that. It's not so structured. Turns out that I'm way more structured than I thought I was. But I think I'm like you, Suzanne. The very first time I wrote Stealing Time, this ends up being 4 books now, but I just sat down and started writing. I didn't plot it completely. And then I realized that with all the twists and turns I'm trying to do, it just made it easier to figure it all out. So.
Right.
Anyway, okay, so if you could be transported back in time, where would you go?
Oh, I'd have to go back to when Jane Austen was around. I want to go sit with her and hang out.
Oh, that would be so
you think,
cool.
What year would, I guess, 1700s, is that 17? Yeah, probably late, mid-1700s. Because, apart from the great dresses, I know you had things like plague and things or whatever. But, you had the great dresses, and, I just love the way they spoke then. And can you imagine how fun it would be to, converse? And I don't know, I think it would be an incredible experience to go back to that time period.
I may have said that before I wrote Stealing Time, but since I did all that research, you cannot make me go back there, man.
Yeah, well, you've had all the scary stuff. I read your book. All the things that were going on. It was challenging. You're right.
1752. But if you could just go back for the afternoon with Jane Austen.
Tea with Jane Austen, then we could do that.
Yeah.
I would love to sit her down and say, hey, guess what, Jane? In 400 years' time, you'll be getting reviews on Goodreads. I saw the other day when I was looking through Goodreads, Jane Austen, and she just got a review. I'm like, my God, I can only hope that I'm getting reviews 400
years. Oh my God,
Goodreads.
That is hilarious.
There you go.
All right, Missy, if you had a superpower, what would you want it to be?
Oh, I'd want to be able to be in more than one place at one time.
Oh.
Think how fun that would be. I could be here like working, but I could also be on the beach in Tahiti, because whenever you're on the beach in Tahiti, you should think you should be working, right? So,
yes, you could actually.
So if you could be doing the same thing and still be doing all those things, how fun would that be?
I think that's brilliant, because you could have one person only on Twitter, and then you could be writing your book.
Exactly.
That's really what you would do.
There could be Twitter me, there could be writing me, there could be beach me.
Screenplay you.
Screenplay me.
TV pilot you.
Best mom in the world me.
Oh, yeah. All of this.
In fact, I need to go do some washing. I just remembered that, just told me that. But you see, if there was another me, then we'd be doing it.
It would be done by now.
Done.
I like that superpower. All right, who or what inspires you?
My audience inspire me. People who respond to my work inspire me, because I think on the hardest days when you're trying to figure out a sentence or whatever, and then I got a beautiful review yesterday, and she said, I can only give this 5 stars. I wish I could give it more.
Oh, that's
And it
awesome.
was like, it was a very small little thing, but I was like, wow, she really got this. And it isn't so much, it's never ego for me, I don't think anyway. It really is about connection. It's like I really want to connect with people on that level.
Yeah.
And I want them to enjoy it. You know, when people don't enjoy it, it doesn't offend me. I'm like, really, I wasn't looking, you weren't part of who I was looking for.
Right.
I'm only really looking for those people who can get some joy out of this.
Right.
So it's not like an ego thing, like I feel better about myself with a good review. I just feel like I made a connection, and that makes me so happy.
That's awesome.
So my audience, my readers, they inspire me.
You know what I'm noticing? You are not a fast lightning round lady.
Oh, I'm not. And think how we tell people off all the time.
I know. How many times have you thought, would they?
Let's go, quick.
All the times you're interviewing, you're like, would you just get to the point? Let's tangent.
Yeah, come on, let's do that.
Look what's happening.
Okay, moving on.
No, but it's all great stuff. I love every word you're saying.
It's not lightning. You're right. I'm not lightning.
No,
let's
that's not you. You're Chatty Cathy. Which book do you wish you had written?
Gosh, anything by Jane Austen. Anything wonderful like that. Anything. I mean, I would love to write historic fiction. I was just talking about, I have ideas for historic fiction. I don't have the time to do the research. Otherwise, I would love to do that.
That's cool.
So anything by Jane Austen, I guess. Yeah. Or one of those writers, that time period.
All right.
Is that quick enough? That's better.
That was good. What is your favorite writing or author moment so far?
Wow. Oh, my favorite author. I know my favorite screenwriting moment, but I can't think of my favorite writing moment so far. I think when you send it off. I mean, for me, people took that hold in the book, but for me, when it went out into the world, and to know that it was gone and that was it, it's such a sense of achievement. Because you really, it is like labor. I mean, I talk about that in my book. You go through so many processes with your book, but to have it suddenly be a finished thing that goes out, that was really exciting for me.
Oh, yeah. And
then I hope that Amazon hadn't lost it when I sent it to Creative Space. Don't lose this!
Oh, no. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. One thing you wish you'd been told about being a writer.
How long it takes. I thought I was going to sit and write a book and then it would be like a year, and I'd be done, and then there would be another book, and it's just not like that. I mean, it's so layering. I mean, you go and you do your first draft, and then you have to fix stuff, and then you have to do there's just so much to it. I mean, I wish that other person that could be the magic person, the superpower. I wish I had someone just working on the book full time. Because there's so much that needs to be done. You can be the editor, you can be the development person, you can be you can be the funny person. Go,
Yeah, man, can you imagine how fast you can get a book out with that? Still would take a year, but you'd at least have all these minds working on it.
I know, it'd be so. But that is the thing. I don't think people realize that it's not just a year of our lives, it's many years of our lives. Of getting where it needs to be.
It's true. That's very true. All right. Well, that was a fabulous interview. Thank you, Suzanne, for joining us here today on Blondie and the Brit. I don't know what happened to the Brit half asking questions. She kind of fell down.
I know, she didn't have to sing, that girl. You need to fire her.
Ugh, she just didn't show up. Well, wait, no, she did show up, and she wouldn't shut up. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, it's all good. No one's listening right now. We're past the 40-minute mark. They've all gone.
They've all gotten out of their cars and went back.
They've done their commute. They finished their lunch. They're done with their dinner. They're all good.
They're like, these two will never shut up. Oh my God.
Well, let's hope there was something positive. I hope there's something in there that, that people have enjoyed.
And if you're in the market for a really funny, heartwarming story, go check out Suzanne's book, which is finally relaunched by Amazon's Lake Union on Amazon.com.
Join us next week on Blondie and the Brit, where we interview Deb Lund. Deb Lund is a picture book author published by H&H Books and HarperCollins.
You can find our show notes and more information about our podcast at blondieandbrit.com. That's BLONDIEANDBRIT.com.